What do you make of the MRNA facility, the announcement it's going to be a sovereign capacity? That's a big development. If we'd said that was going to happen a couple of years ago, many would have doubted it. It is going to happen. Labor says it's taking too long to deliver, though.
Well, of course, it's an exciting announcement, and it's very much in keeping with what both parties are going to be promising, which is a return to many more sovereign capabilities based on the supply chain risks that we've experienced over the last couple of years, and the new mood of protecting ourselves against actors who might potentially not want to supply to us for various strategic reasons. Of course, Labor is always going to come in and say that this is happening too slowly. That's going to be their line against Morrison in the upcoming election, that promises happen first and action lags well behind it. But, you know, this is a big development. So if there is a bit of meat on the bones, this is an exciting thing for Australia.
Parnell, you were there to see the Prime Minister's address at the Sydney Institute last night. I saw you and we had a good discussion. But one of the points I wanted to discuss with you about his speech, it seems to me that he was recognising some of the errors a bit more frankly. I think that's a good thing in a political sense, you know, in a political approach, that as you head into an election, he's got to be willing to say, OK, we've got a few of these things wrong, but let's look at the total sum. I think it's a much more potent message than just trying to say everything's been hunky-dory, Parnell.
I agree entirely. I think that that's what Australians want to see, and that's why Gladys Berejiklian performed so well and was so popular, that she admitted mistakes. She admitted that in a situation like a pandemic, an unknown situation, you're not going to get everything right every time. And we are heading into untested waters globally. So it is an important attribute of a leader that they be able to acknowledge that you don't get everything right every time in an uncertain environment, and you have to be able to revise your thinking along those lines. So I did think that was interesting. I also thought it was very interesting last night that the line for this election is definitely Australians don't want to build back better. Australians want to go back to the way it was. And I think after a long and exhausting couple of years, many people will relate to that.
Indeed. And one of the messages about wanting to withdraw government intervention says that that it's just not, he doesn't feel comfortable with it, even though as Prime Minister, of course, he's had a big role in delivering those government moves, whether it be federal or via national cabinet, the state government decisions. It's been a period of huge government intervention. Can he put some distance between himself, his government, and that trend that we've seen over the last couple of years? Or will people say, well, you've been in office, why this message now?
I think this is being picked up very much from focus groups, that people want less intervention in their lives, but what they're really thinking of is they no longer want to be stopped from doing the things they want to do, like travelling domestically to see their family, travelling internationally. They no longer want to have all of the little impositions on their lives. And that's the mood for getting government out of one's life. I don't think that is going to happen in a grander sense, though. I mean, we have much higher government intervention than we've had before as a result of the pandemic. There have been many funding programs, and many of them are not going to unwind in the same way. Australians have reallocated their priorities, and some of their priorities are now more towards programs which do require government intervention and spending. So I think this is really the balance that Morrison is going to strike. People want government to leave them alone to do the things they want, but Australians are used to, even more used to than ever, being looked after by government in certain areas.
And Parnell, the other thing that he's been reiterating is that we're not going to let Omicron take us back. It's not going to take us back to lockdowns and that sort of thing. We see, and I hope he's right, I asked Richard Marles about that earlier in the program, and he's the Deputy Labor Leader, of course. He was saying the same thing. He hopes that the Prime Minister is right, but there is still uncertainty when these new variants emerge, and our great researchers and medical practitioners have to adapt, whether it be adapt the vaccine or adapt the dosage or whatever else. It's still very fluid, Parnell.
It is fluid, but you know what's most fluid is the community attitude toward it. And I think that's the real key as to whether we go into lockdown with a variant like Omicron or not. And it seems to me that in Australia, people are just not getting upset about this particular variant. The numbers in New South Wales today are up to 800 cases, but it's not putting people into hospital at the same rates, and it certainly doesn't appear yet to be killing people at the same rates. So there is a component of people simply getting used to the virus. Now, of course, that's different in the UK. In the UK, there are now new restrictions as a result of the Omicron virus, or attributed to it at least. So we will have to see how different nations and the peoples of different nations respond to it. And I think that Australians, in line with what we're talking about before, about the Prime Minister tapping into this mood for getting out of people's lives, Australians are sick of COVID. They don't feel like it's been terribly serious here, and so they're more inclined to brush this off and say this is a mild thing and we don't want any more restrictions as a result.